Jessica, how are you today?
I woke up this morning and I'm feeling fantastic. Uh, so I gotta say, doing really well.
That is what I like to hear. Not many people say that they wake up and they feel fantastic. So I'm really, really happy to hear that. What exactly made you feel fantastic?
I think just honestly waking up, seeing the morning light, something that's really been inspiring to me lately, visually, has just been morning light, the way that it hits the plants, the way that it hits the wall. And I think operate with this sense of, I don't know, this playfulness and creativity. And I think that waking up and being able to access that, that's really nice and refreshing. And I don't always wake up like that. So I'm really grateful that I was able to wake up in that state this morning and just be present with the world around me, kind of opening my eyes and seeing this sort of like bright existence. So yeah, I know that's kind of weirdly positive and intense,
No,
but I actually did wake up like that this morning, so it was really nice.
it's incredibly positive and far from intense. I think any rational person would say to themselves, I want to wake up and have mornings like that.
Well,
I think
that's
that's fair.
beautiful.
That's more
Yeah.
than fair. And I'm hoping to have that morning tomorrow. That's what I'm going to say.
Lovely. I love that. Yeah. We all
So,
need
Jessica,
mornings like that.
we will do. We will do. So I've seen some of your work. I've been on your website. Incredible stuff. Really, really good. Really, really creative. I really feel that you have a voice as a creative, and you're able to navigate that voice into the arts in a way many people are not able to. So I'm really interested to know how you got your start in the industry and what inspired you to become the creative that you are.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for that compliment and observation. I think a lot of the times, as creatives and as artists, we're just looking for like a sense of somebody seeing us. So
Mm.
I really appreciate that from you. Yeah, as far as getting my start in the arts, I think I've always been really interested in imagination, and I kind of as even a child would retreat into my imagination. I would be writing stories as like a kid constantly, whenever I would have like play dates with friends. Like we'd always be making something. So I think there's always been that creative bone and wanting to sort of bring into the world something that didn't exist. I remember too, like running around with this big bulky video camera that my
Mm.
parents had and filming scenes around the house. So I think that's always really been rooted inside of me. And just, I think this ability to kind of see worlds that don't exist and create like pieces and textures of those worlds. Even if I can't write, like it's like with money, with budget, with extended resources, we can create so much. But I think even if I'm able to create a fraction of that, there's something that's so satisfying about that act. So yeah, I'd say I got my start just in the everyday practice of making, and then I became more passionate with that, like developing that practice. I want to say, really, this is going to sound weird and kind of coming out of left field, but
Go for it.
I was extremely religious growing up. That was like a safe haven for me, and something about being or like feeling like you're divinely fueled like really boosts your confidence. And regardless of what I believe now, I do think that was really helpful and sort of like pushing me forward into this, yeah, this just having this blind confidence of I can make it, like I'm empowered to do so. um and I'm just going to go for it. So there was a little bit of element of that. And then I think too, just watching movies, like
Yeah.
reading stories, storytelling is a huge influence in my life, and being able to escape within that is so valuable. And also, like, the lessons that we learn from storytellers, and being able to really be bold within, the context of what they're saying, I think also is really cool. It's like you felt the courage to say that, and I identify with that, and thank you. So yeah, I'd say that was a kicking off point, is just really the everyday practice of creating something, trying to bring something into existence that didn't exist. This sort of like blind confidence I was able to acquire through this religious upbringing, and then yeah, just really being into film, into storytelling, really fueled me.
It
And
sounds
I'm
like
just sorry, I'm just gonna let my cat leave because he's can you hear him?
no, he's more
Okay,
than
never
welcome to
mind.
join in,
Okay, okay, cool.
I love
Sorry.
cats.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
No, no, that's fine. That's fine. So your personal journey sounds like storytelling is fundamental to your existence and was something that was deep and meaningful to you as a child growing up. Whose stories in particular resonated with you, and how did that help merge dance and filmmaking influence your work?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's really interesting because I was very much drawn to fantasy writing and fantasy storytellers like Neil Gaiman. I was very into some weird like horror books, like Choose Your Own Adventure, Goosebumps, like just
Mm,
this the sort of standard like young adult. Um I also really enjoyed Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Are Watching God. I think that's kind of a staple, and just this woman who felt trapped in her existence and decided to break free and create her own story, and falling passionately like in love, and then it kind of being a disaster. Yeah, I'd say there was a bit of that. There's a little bit of Toni Morrison. I was definitely reading books
okay.
that I probably shouldn't have been reading at my age, but
Mm,
it's like really, really just interested in that aspect of what it means to seek out something bigger than yourself. So
I love
that,
that.
and oh, go for it.
No, I said I love that. Seek out something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. And I think too, this connection to dance storytelling. So yeah, I failed to mention that dance was also like a huge influence in my life. I think from that religious context, decided to focus more in on dance as a medium because I felt something that was just so um I don't know, this physical presence, this sort of innate nature in us as humans to be curious about movement and what that does to our bodies, like how that releases us emotionally.
Mm,
And I think it resonated with me when I was sitting in church one day and I just kind of felt compelled to move around and move my body. And I started to make this connection that dance was really spiritual for me. There was a spiritual root in dance. And I'm not religious now, but I still was able to take that lesson of dance being spiritual, and being a guiding light. And I think that really was a pivot point for me. It's like, this is spiritual, this is innate. And like, how can I create stories with this that will deeply affect people as it's deeply affected me? So yeah, that's really how I got into dance. And I think I pivoted into dance filmmaking because I wanted more people to see the art of dance, and I wanted to broaden the audience. And I think that filmmaking is such a beautiful tool in bringing around everyone. you have so much access to things visually when they're on the internet, when they
Mm,
are, distributed, when people can go into a theater and watch these things. And so I think I was really interested in an audience that didn't totally understand dance, and I wanted to give them more of an entry point into dance. And that's still something I'm working on. Like I very much feel like I am at the beginning, even though I've been doing this for many years at this point. I feel like I'm still discovering new ways of how to really entice an audience with this weird form of art. Like it's
mm,
weird. Like we're moving our bodies around, you know. Sometimes we make people feel uncomfortable. Um, Sometimes it's funny.
mm.
And it's not meant to be funny, but it's like I think these are all things that, bring people together and create a dialogue. And I think the dance world, really more than anything, needs people to be in dialogue with it. So, yeah.
Amazing. That is true. That is very, very true. But I do wonder, you yourself come from Oklahoma and you've moved to Brooklyn, two very different places, as we've previously discussed. What are the main differences for you as a creative being in Brooklyn now compared to when you lived in Oklahoma?
Yeah. So, this is a good question because Oklahoma has definitely changed immensely since I was living there. I basically grew up in Oklahoma, went to high school there, but then I moved away for college. Immediately after college, I did an internship in Massachusetts, Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, where that's how I really, I think, got rooted more in film and the technicalities of film and dealing with equipment and learning more, again, like the technical aspects of these things. Working about like 80 hours a week in an internship
Whoa.
in the woods. Like, it
Wow.
was a very intense departure from growing up in Oklahoma. And not to say we don't have woods, but it's more of like a prairie situation.
Hmm.
um, and I want to say culturally, the pacing is very different, right? So there's more of a relaxed pacing. It's more of a, I want to say, experimental spot and space to be in. Like, there's definitely a lot of access in Oklahoma now, I think, for people to experiment a bit more, to really try anything and bring, again, those things that didn't exist into existence. It's like you could go to Oklahoma now and say, I'm going to start this film program and start it and get funding from the state. So it's like easier to
Oh,
do those types of things. But it's, again, I think the bigger difference is maybe the network of folks that you're working with. And also, and there are a lot of high caliber folks in Oklahoma, but I want to say New York City, there's like a concentrated amount of like super high caliber
yeah.
folks, like in all industries. And so I think like that is a big difference of the quality that you're going to put out, or yeah, the output quality and the output frequency, if that makes sense. So
Completely makes sense.
yeah, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but I think that's just the reality of these two spaces. So I would say that's a huge difference. And again, I think Mm, kind of the freedom of speech aspect. Like,
Okay.
and I know in America, like we're free to say whatever we want, but I think in an environment like Oklahoma, things can become very political very quickly. Like that can happen in any environment, but because it is also a state that's within the Bible Belt, if you say certain things, if you do certain things, you're not necessarily going to draw the general crowd like you would in a space like New York City, because I think maybe more of the values of like the larger population there, right? So that's definitely something that you're competing against. And I think it's beautiful, these spaces in Oklahoma that have opened up that have these pockets of people that are like pushing the narrative and saying, let's do a little bit more, let's say a little bit more. But it unfortunately just like doesn't move as quickly as we want it to. So I'd say that's also like a pretty big difference. And something that I really love about being in New York is I really have the courage to say what I want to say, do the things that I want to do. If I wanted to rip my shirt off and like run through the street as a performance art piece, I could do that. And you know, people would be like, "Where are you performing next?" You know,
Well,
so
yeah.
so I think it's an interesting dynamic in terms of just feeling more artistically free. And yeah, the abundance of creative folks that can push you to also build and be better and encourage you to keep moving forward.
Can you give me an example of one thing in particular you tried to do or you feel you couldn't do in Oklahoma?
Yeah, so I think that, let's see. Again, this is a little bit of a tougher question, I think, for me because I've been away from Oklahoma for so long. I did move back for 1 year
Okay.
during the pandemic, and that was really, I think, where I got to see the different artistic communities that had popped up over time and got to spend time there. But I think something that is, yeah, something that I could do here that I can't do there. Oof, it's tough because it's like I could do the same things here that I'm doing there. I'm just not gonna get the same response,
Oh,
if
I
that
completely
makes
understand.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's more that it's like one could argue that I could possibly do more there just
Okay.
because of funding and resources. Um, but again, it's like the response and the engagement. Is that something that I'm going to get? Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know. I don't
I
know.
understand. I think
Maybe yeah. So,
because it's different but similar. A friend and I were discussing not being a filmmaker in London and how if you were to possibly go to Yorkshire or somewhere like that, you'd have more space, you'd have actors in a different way, and there's less bodies competing for the small amount of funding that traditionally only goes to certain people anyway. So it could be an easier move and we could do the same things, but they would be less received just because of the nature of where Yorkshire is and what Yorkshire's like. And that's not me knocking Yorkshire or any other place in Britain, but I can understand the difference between New York and Oklahoma can be quite large in different ways. And Oklahoma can be better in different ways. It's a tough one. It really does sound like it depends on the individual as a creative and what you potentially want to say as an artist. That makes the big difference. And you yourself as a video producer and editor at Lincoln Center, how do you integrate your artistic vision with the institution's objectives?
yeah, thank you for asking that question. First of all, I want to say, let me just like stop with this first of all business. Like, I don't need to introduce,
No.
but
Yeah.
I'd love to really say that working at Lincoln Center these last couple of years has been a transformative experience for me, and I'm really grateful because I work on like a kick-ass team at this arts institution, and I think it's the best team at an arts institution.
Good.
But
Happy for you.
um thank you. I will say integrating an artistic vision, the position I'm in now, I'm certainly like prioritizing the branding needs of the institution and what they've settled on. And I think, you know, going off of our general direction from our department head. So basically, my job is within the marketing sphere of Lincoln Center. So we do get to create these like beautiful film projects, but again, we're falling under the marketing department. So we're trying to get people to Lincoln Center. And I think what's really cool about it is it's this huge event space. Like we've got the Philharmonic, there's the
Mm.
Metropolitan Opera, there's New York City Ballet, there's the Chamber Music Society, Juilliard has performances there, and then the organization that I particularly work for, Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, we essentially house all of those other organizations. So there are constituents and we get to work together on a lot of programming, but we also have our own array of programming. And right now we're in this big, huge summer festival that we've done for a few years. It's called Summer for the City. And we host over like 1,000 events on our campus during the summer. And it's a massive undertaking for our staff, but the reward of seeing so many different New Yorkers come out and get to enjoy things that, they would normally enjoy maybe like in their neighborhood, but they're welcome to come and be on the disco dance floor in Lincoln Center
Nice.
Plaza. It's a really cool festival. And Damrosch, we outfit like every year. Damrosch Park, a stage is built in that band shell currently. It's the band shell, but yeah, people come out there for these big concert events, and we host films. We partner with, again, the different constituents to host certain programs. And yeah, it's just really cool. It's a really cool place to be, and it's really rewarding. And I'd say, to get back to the question you asked about integrating artistic vision, it can be like really, really easy um, when I feel relatively free to add my input, because I feel like the team that I work on is really, really great about listening and making space for ideas. And I haven't always been on teams like that. And so that this is actually sort of a new process for me to be on a team where I'm like, oh, they're listening to my ideas. Like, oh, they're
It
like,
makes such a big difference.
it makes such a huge
Yeah.
difference. And it also gives you the confidence to dream bigger and ask for
Mm.
more, right? And that's how we grow.
Yep.
So there's that. But then I would say, yeah, of course, like naturally, this job can push against some of my artistic inclinations. And also part of my like personal aesthetic choices. And I think that is an inflection point where collaboration can allow for growth, right? And maybe that's the growth of, okay, maybe this is like not the right timing to implement this idea or vision, or maybe I can support my colleague and we're going with that idea for now, and I can understand and see and like learn how they're going to execute this new idea that that has been come up with. So I'm excited to say that I feel like it's easy and hard.
Like a lot of the best things, easy and
Yeah,
hard, like a lot
yeah,
of the best things. But what I think might be easy, no, I shouldn't say that. Slap me in the face digitally. What I think is different, how do you approach creating dance for stage compared to dance for the screen?
yeah. I also wanted to add just like one more thing about Lincoln
Sure.
Center. It's such a beautiful institution in the sense that it's been around for so long, and they really pivoted the last few years into a direction where I feel like there's so much more programming that is like culturally diverse, and it's been really cool to see that joining the organization. And I think that ultimately artistically I kind of say, all right, like, is this going to honor like the moving forward in the direction that this institution wants to go. So there's like a little bit of that too, of like conceding, which I think is, just like a part of any job, a little bit of compromise.
But sorry, when you say will they honor what they're doing,
Mhm.
you mean without being rude, you don't want to feel like what they're doing might be a fad?
Yeah, it's like I want to approach this with the mindset of this is the way that we're going as an institution. Like we are changing the way that we've been doing things. And I will say, like, I think that they have really held in on their promise to shift a lot of things. I think one of the projects that I've seen really come to light is the legacies of San Juan Hill, which is really Lincoln Center being like, this is our history. Like we were built on top of this neighborhood that was mostly like black and brown people and immigrants and
Mm,
immigrants. And like we messed up. Like this is the history of like what this neighborhood was before, and like we're gonna put money into like telling you the story. We're gonna put money into bringing some programming that educates you about the history, that talks about where we are now and like how we can move forward. So whereas we can't remedy or like necessarily pay restitution, right? Like we can do what we can do culturally, which is educate, which is what the arts, in my opinion, is about. It's about
mm.
educating the public. It's about educating folks about new ideas, about new concepts, about empathy, So I think that that is something that I've seen them really, really put, a lot of energy behind, as well as some other projects that are currently developing. And so I think artistically, I try to go back and say, okay, am I helping move this forward? Um, and if not, then okay, like I can compromise, you know?
That's more than fair. That is more than fair. And I'm glad that
Yeah.
you feel that it's not a fad and it is moving in the right direction, because sometimes in some quarters we have situations where it is a fad and things are not recognized that have previously gone on before. But again, I do wonder, and why I said the word easy, slap me digitally again, earlier, is because dance for stage compared to for uh, dance to stage compared to dance for the screen. I was looking at how would I shoot it?
Mm.
Would I use a multi-cam setup, or how would I do what lenses would I use? What focal lengths would be needed, and all the rest of it. But for you as the dancer and the choreographer, how do you make it different, or what is the process like comparing the two?
Yeah, thank you for this question. And I'm like glad that we're like heading into I'm glad that we're heading into the dance filmmaking territory, because this is really where I feel like I shine a bit more.
Oh no, you
I-
shine, you shine. I've got dark
Thank
glasses
you.
on.
I appreciate it. Um yeah, so first I want to say dance it's one of my greatest loves. Like it's in my life and I've given a lot to it. It's given a lot to me. And in regards to dance informing the filmmaking, I'd say um, because it's such a unique art form and so experimental and so fleeting and in the moment. Like if you're seeing a dance performance and you're there in person, like you can, if you're sitting on the front row, second row, you can hear the dancers breathing. You can, see and feel the energy of
Mm,
movement between the bodies, and you're having that experience live, and it's not necessarily something that can be replicated with film. And I think having that understanding innately and deeply within me helps actually empower me to make dance for film. And I'd say that in a sense the live performance is one thing, but then when you're filming it and capturing for video, there's a possibility for it to expand, like transform, be recreated, and not necessarily you know, well, wait, not necessarily recreated, but maximized, sharpened.
I like it.
So I think that is something that I really, really love to see. And as far as approaching it, I think having a conversation with the choreographer, if you're not the choreographer, is key. And as I'm choreographing a dance, I'm thinking about all these moments of like, where are the moments I want people to focus in on? Like, where is an impactful, like, moment of choreography or moment of communication between the dancers, and how can we rearrange that for the eye? So as a choreographer, I may be thinking of a proscenium stage, which is mostly flat. And something that's so beautiful about film, right? We can get in there, we can get up close, we can go super far away, we can like do bird's eye view. And I think, again, going back to those moments, those motifs of, okay, this is where I want someone to feel something, and re-examining that and playing with it, in real time, I think is essential, and helps really along with the storytelling, because I think something that can happen oftentimes in dance, because it's not always narrative. Like, there's definitely dance theater that has more
Mm.
of a narrative line, or there's if there's a track that is speaking that kind of helps guide the audience along. But a lot of dance that I've seen over the years, there's no talking. It's
Yeah.
just performers moving around on stage, and you have to be able to, through their body language, really absorb what they're trying to say. And I think first, like, having that conversation with the choreographer, seeing the piece in person if you can, and walking around while you're seeing the piece. So
Oh.
like seeing it frontally, but then walking around in space, like, as you're watching it. Because it is so visual, and there are those moments that you can catch that are like, oh, what if we actually did an upshot here, or what if we did like a close up in this moment, or what if we only focused on like the limbs in this moment, and what can that communicate? So that's a lot. There are many
Mhm.
ways of approaching it, but I would say, yeah, I would love to, watch, have that conversation with the choreographer, and then get around in the space and move to see uh what that could do with the camera. And sometimes, like, I'll actually have a camera in space with me, maybe not the one that I'm shooting with, but or the one that the DP is shooting with, but like I'll have my phone and I'll
Mm.
just be moving around and seeing like, okay, like this could be really nice here, or like, yeah, I can definitely see the communication happening between these five dancers, way better at this angle, or it looks more interesting or aesthetically pleasing here than it does in a frontal view. But I will say with choreographers, because and not all choreographers are educated in film or
Mm.
know a ton about film, but they feel intrinsically drawn to it because it is sort of a way of choreographing, um, putting together a movie, putting together a film, editing. It's a way of arranging a story, and that's what choreographers are doing. They're arranging a story with bodies. So I think it's important to have those conversations up front about, also about what collaboration looks like, because I think, at least the dance world that I grew up in, I'm hoping it's very much changed now, but the choreographer was sort of like God. It's like, like, this is the way we're doing it. Like, make sure your foot is pointed this way, or that you've got a winged foot, or make sure that you're on center and you're hitting the mark, or like the leg has to be up at this count. Like, it's very precise. And I think with filmmaking, yeah, there's a lot of precision in filmmaking as well. But I think when you're collaborating in mediums, there has to be some give and take. And because the choreographer can be married to what it looks like from a very
Mm.
specific way, sometimes it does take more than one conversation to be for them to really be able to envision in a way that is, again, like transformative, maximized, sharpened, and going to really affect or really reach a wider audience.
You've mentioned the cinematography and how that can literally maximize and sharpen the performance for the screen. Well, what about installations and mixed media projects involving dance? Have you been involved in those, and what are the comparisons like compared to straight screen work?
Yeah, so could you ask that question again?
Sure.
Sorry.
This is a follow-up question. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not a part of
No, it's all
uh,
good. It's all
yeah.
good.
So basically, if what is it like doing, or have you done mixed media projects? And what I mean by that is dance with poetry, music, screens, and things of that nature. How does that compare to a stage performance or a screen performance where it's filmed, as we previously spoke about?
Yeah, I want to say the more people you have, the more folks you're collaborating with, the more ideas that are going to be there, the more particularities are going to be there to kind of, make people feel comfortable. Like, this is how I like to perform, or this is what I'd
Mm,
like to do. So you're oftentimes going to get more opinions and
yeah.
and again, like, that's great. It gives everybody a chance to learn the beautiful art of collaboration, and also gives us all an opportunity to understand how to work together to really, again, keep the project true and really tell the vision and tell the story in a way that it is going to be, impactful for folks. So yeah, I would say that I have worked on a couple of pieces like that, and one in particular that I can remember very vividly is a collaboration I did in Oklahoma City, actually, um, with Nicole Poole, who is the creator and director of Spark. Company, and it is a sound painting company, which that is a whole genre that I was unfamiliar with. And it was really cool. It's also improvisational, but it
Wow.
combines the mediums of visual art, music, dance, poetry. So there's a lot going on. And a lot can be happening simultaneously and through improvisation. Um, and I worked on this project Yield, which was actually accumulation of a workshop series that Spark held at Oklahoma Contemporary Art Center in downtown Oklahoma City. And I think it was 6 weeks of workshops where we invited the public to come in and focus on a very particular art. So, like, 1 week was music, 1 week was theater, 1 week was dance. And then Nicole would also come in and teach a little bit of sound painting. And so we'd do some improvisational things together, and we'd build with the participants in the workshop. We'd build some ideas, and then we'd take them back to our group on our rehearsals, which was the Spark Ensemble, and we'd integrate some of those ideas. And it's a lot. It's a lot working with all those different mediums. And I think Nicole also had so many different ideas, so many beautiful ideas, but we also had a finite amount of time to put it together. And so the 6 or 7 weeks culminated in this 45-minute performance that Spark Creative Lab put on at Oklahoma Contemporary, and invited, the public to come, folks from those workshops, and it was really cool. But it was a lot of work to put it together, and I think I learned that, and something that I learned in every collaboration, that communication is so key. and
Mm.
over communicate. Like, over
Yeah.
communicating can be annoying, but over communicating is going to be better than under communicating. And ultimately, we created a really, I think, unique piece of work that Oklahoma hadn't really seen before. And that was really cool to be a part of that. Like, it was really cool to, at the end of it, have audience members coming up and being like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. Thank you for this.
Yeah.
And I really owe a lot to Nicole as well, of just having this huge idea and bringing me in to co-direct and co-facilitate and choreograph. But yeah, and also I wanted to say, initially this idea came about. She had this idea of connecting to the land, and we held, before the workshops were held, there was a town hall where she invited different leaders, different cultural leaders from Oklahoma City, to come and have conversation. And there were these different note cards that the public filled out, these leaders filled out, and they put these note cards together and created a poem out of those note cards that kind of served as the spine of the piece. So that helped us navigate from like dance to music to theater to visual art. So it was all connected, and it was great to find that through line. And I think, going back to your question, like, how do you deal with all these mediums? How do you work within all these mediums? I think having a base, or like a root system, or like a
Mm.
through line to connect them is always helpful.
That is amazing. Gosh, I wish I was in Oklahoma back then. I really do. And you've talked through the different mediums and the things you believe in terms of communication and working and collaborating with people, which all sound amazing. But can you walk us through the creative process when you start a new project, such as the film Render Space?
Yeah, I have a varying creative process that I feel shifts with each project that I take on or embark on. And for Render Space particularly, I had just wanted to make something. I was frustrated with my work. I was frustrated
Mm.
with my dancing. I just wanted to make a piece, a statement of, see me, see what I can do, see what I can make, see who I am. And I talked with my friend Kayla Simpson about this, and we started to talk about identity. So it became of like, it started from this little root, this like little selfish root of frustration and like, I want attention. And then kind of evolved into this self-discovery of, what is identity? How do I identify? And then it sort of became this cultural call of, what have I run into as a Black woman in America, in this industry, in these different industries, and how can I have a conversation about that with my friends? So we started having conversations on Zoom. This was during the pandemic, actually, as well.
Yeah.
Um, so we had these conversations on Zoom, and then we were like, we got to put these conversations in our bodies. So we started to improvise. We sent videos back and forth. And then I started to get some words. Some words started to come up through experiences that I'd had with work, and I was like, okay, I need to sit down and write things down and really outpour onto the page. And I was able to create some prose, basically, and some poetry, and
Nice.
that served as a spine again, like for the book that was Render Space. But yeah, so that happened, and then she had a job in Oklahoma City. We shot that. It's so funny. It's like I'm living in New York, I'm working in New York, but I'm going to talk to you a lot about Oklahoma City
Oh,
today.
no, great. It's where you're from,
Yeah,
so I love to hear about it.
cool. So yeah, so we then went into process of, we've got some movements together, let's figure out how to combine them, and then we started to talk about the visual aesthetic, what that needed to look like. Of course, as all of this is happening, there's pre-production, and pre-production is a place that I just feel is so important.
Oh gosh,
It
yeah.
is it
It can
is
make
going
or
to,
break the project.
yes, and it's going to set you up and for such success if you do a
Mm.
lot of it, right? So we did a lot of pre-production, and I think that was really helpful for us. And then by the time that we got to the day of the shoot, which was, we just shot all of it in one day, just to maximize on the time she was here and the time
Excellent.
that, yeah. So yeah, I want to say that that process was very collaborative, but it started with a frustration, and then I got in conversation with my friend about it, and then we started to move around. So perhaps like movement and movement exploration was like a huge catalyst, because I think as I started to move, certain words started to come up out of
Mm,
me, and I was like, okay, or certain visions of scenes or certain motifs. I say the word motif a lot because that does really happen with me, where I'll see like a scene or like two people in space with each other, or one person um in a space and doing a certain movement, and that'll kind of serve as like a marker, like it shows up somewhere in the piece, and it's like building off of that or building up to that. So yeah, so that was the process for that piece. And yeah, when we got to the shoot date, we were both there to encourage each other, and we hired
good.
this awesome DP, Jake Kelly, and he was with us that whole time, that whole long day. um, but yeah, I think we were really proud of what we were able to make. And honestly, she's doing so many really cool projects right now. She's out in LA, and she's been to the UK to
Oh, okay.
do some work. And um yeah, I'm just really excited for her career. And I think my next dance film, it's going to take a little time. I feel like doing Brain Blow and then Render Space, like I had
Yeah.
specific ideas with those pieces, and I am kind of, I'm getting closer to what the next one is. It's not totally informed yet, but I've got some ideas.
Do you often get frustrated as a creative? Because I think a lot of us do.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
What are your main frustrations?
Um, I think I get frustrated with, yeah, there's a few. I get frustrated with time.
Mm,
I wish there was more time. I wish there was more time to do the things that I think are needed for a creative to continue to maximize on their vision and continue to maximize on their potential. And time is awarded to some folks, but not to everyone.
mm,
And that is a frustrating reality to deal with. Um, so there's that. I think I get frustrated with the lack of diversity in larger storytelling, and not necessarily, I think that larger storytelling has done better with casting for sure. Um because I think obviously as the world changed, they had to adjust certain things.
yeah.
And some people have stuck with that mission, like I said, and excited to see and cheer them on. And some people were like, well, this was a fad and now we're going back to how we've been doing things. But I think frustrated in the sense of diversity of storytelling and like, where are the stories coming from? Who are the main characters? Why are their personalities like only this one personality? It's I think there's a lot to be done in terms of mainstream storytelling. But I will say it's been really cool to see a lot of indie movies and indie directors getting their voices out there, and telling stories in a unique way. And I think I'll always be in love with the indie market because it's just there's more depth there. Like, there's just more
Yeah.
depth.
Are there any people in the indie market that resonate with you right now in contemporary times?
Mm, that's a really good question. Ah, it's hard. Yeah, there are definitely a few, and it's tough because I'm probably not seeing as many films as I should be seeing. Like, I wanna be seeing more, and that also speaks to the sort of frustration of time. Like, I wish there was more of it,
Yeah.
so I could do more of the research that I'm really fascinated to do. But I think there are a lot of women out there making films that really excite me. I mean, not necessarily an indie film now, but like Celine Song, her film Past Lives, I thought that was such a beautiful piece of work. And I mean, definitely a mainstream pick, but I just really love the storytelling there. I loved that it was so much from a woman's perspective and the complicated dynamics there that weren't totally resolved, but were um, very realistic. So I think
Mm.
the more realistic the storytelling to me, I think the more I resonate with that. I mean, there's also this film from a while back that I just love, and The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Um,
Yeah. The DP's been on this podcast as well. So
yeah.
right. Yeah.
I love that film and the storytelling there. And so I think, yes, these are kind of sad stories, but um, and maybe I have a penchant for that. But I guess I'm also really interested in the horror market and seeing like how people are telling stories there. And I feel very drawn to the indie market, yet I cannot name you indie directors, which is like an issue I'm trying to
To be fair,
overcome.
you know what? If I'm honest, someone said to me the other day, it was just in a cafe, who are
Mm,
your favorite actors? And I just went blank. So I
yeah.
understand sometimes when questions like these come up, you just go blank. It happens to the best of us.
Well, and I feel like I had like a list. I had lists that I was creating before this podcast actually, and I
Okay.
don't have that list in front of me and I cannot find where I put that list.
That's okay.
But yeah, I'd say I think too, like film is not the only medium that I gain a lot of inspiration from because I also am so invested in dance. Like I could probably tell you more choreographers than I
Ah,
could tell you filmmakers, you know, like
understandable.
I love Pam Tanowitz, like I love Crystal Pite. These are choreographers that I think seeing their work over time has been transformative for me. I love seeing Kayla Farish. She's one of my friends. And I would say she's an up and coming choreographer, but she's been doing it for so long that I can't even really say she's up and coming. But I know that the art world would say that she's up and coming or
Okay.
emergent. But I love her work and I love her improvisational technique and style, and I think she's just a master improviser. So I think when I think about artistic inspiration, I definitely go dance first because dance, which is movement, inspires me above all else because that's our body language. Like the body can tell me, where the frame needs to be, in a
Mm.
way. And
Mm.
I appreciate that information. The body can tell me where to seek light. Um, the body can tell me what words to form. So I find all of those inspirations, I think, deeply connected physically.
Amazing. Jessica, I truly have loved speaking to you. We've literally, we're not even halfway through what I intended. We've just kind of gone in deep with these questions in a way I love. And I hope, because time's run short for us today, that you can come back on another time and I can continue speaking to you and get through some of the other questions I had in mind, like visual art and texture and yield and multidisciplinary responses to things and family and your artistic journey as a whole. Where does it end, or will it ever end? So thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciated this near hour we've had, and hopefully I'll be able to speak to you again soon.
And thank you for having me on. I've been, really looking forward to just having conversation. I think this is something that I really also am so excited about as an artist. And to that question, yes, I will create until the day I die. That's just who I am. It's in my
Yeah,
DNA. And I just love having these conversations. So anytime I'll come back on whenever.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Jessica,
All
hold on a
right.
second, please.
Mhm.